Welcome on in to the Road Wire Fantasy Football Podcast, the Week 8 preview edition. I'm your host, John McKechnie. That is Mario Puig. We're going to run through the entire Week 8 board, starting from Thursday night all the way through the Monday night game. Bunch of tricky decisions this week. This week, I feel like, is the survival week in your leagues because maybe you're sitting at 3-4, 4-3, something like that, and we have a lot of key teams on a bye. Jackson Smith and Jigba and the Seahawks are going to be off this week. We also have the Rams coming back from London. They will be off. The Lions, the Raiders, that doesn't really matter so much. The Cardinals and the Jaguars all idle this week. So in addition to any injuries you've got on your roster, you've got probably some key pieces that you're going to need to replace in your lineups this week. We're going to try to help you do that as best as we can. We're going to lead things off with the Thursday nighter. We got the Vikings and the Chargers. Chargers, I think, coming out with some better uniforms than what they did last week, where they were running around looking like Pikachu and getting crushed by Indianapolis. So I think that's a mark in their favor for sure. But they are 3.5-point favorites, it looks like, at ESPN Bet. The Chargers are against the Vikings. The Vikings will be rolling once again with Carson Wentz at quarterback. How do we see this one playing out?
It's tough, in my opinion, because it seems like a pretty difficult spot for Herbert in that even with Joe Alt maybe being back, that offensive line just kind of isn't very good. Even when everybody's healthy, I'm kind of concerned that might be the case. So for Alt to be kind of like returning quickly from a high ankle sprain, I'm worried that he's only like 80% or something like that. So re-injury also concerns me there. I'm kind of just leery of pretty much all situations for the Chargers right now. And so for them to be going against the Vikings specifically, they've kind of taken some hits this year that they didn't really last year. And it hasn't been easy at all times, but that defense is still more dangerous than not, even when they kind of get embarrassed by, even when they have a down week. I think going against that Chargers offensive line is kind of like a good get right spot for that Vikings pass rush, which if it's at the expense of Justin Herbert, who's the only person who can win for the Chargers, then I'm kind of like, concerned for them in the matchup. But Carson Wentz, of course, is not very good. So Carson Wentz could at once be way better than JJ McCarthy and still some version of horrifyingly bad, which he luckily, knock on wood, hasn't been so horrifyingly bad that it sabotaged the production of Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison like it did in the case of JJ McCarthy. But I have to believe Jesse Minter on the other side, the Chargers defensive coordinator, like he can probably put a quarterback like Wentz in some difficult decision-making spots, and Wentz has a way of kind of when Wentz is aware of sorry, I guess Dulce is going crazy, but maybe she's when Wentz is feeling any pressure, hang on, just give me a second. Sorry,
I can filibuster. But yes, Wentz against a good pass rush has proven time and time again to be, a pretty unreliable quarterback. Obviously, has gotten Jordan Addison going in recent weeks. He's been cooking along pretty nicely in his 3 games back thus far, and it looks like also additionally a kind of a helper for Carson Wentz should be Aaron Jones if he's back available. It looks like he's trending in that direction after being out for a good chunk of the season thus far.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of the Jones thing personally, just because I think Jordan Mason was kind of better. Sorry to hear that, Jamie. Yeah, Dulce is pretty obnoxious.
Like the X
here. Yeah. But yeah, I think Jordan Mason kind of fits the offense a little bit better. Granted, he can't do the pass catching things that Jones can. I'm just kind of, I don't know. I thought Mason was not like the problem that the Vikings had during their low points over the past few weeks. And granted, in this game, yeah, it's harder to run up the middle against the Chargers than to the boundary. Maybe Jones can help them there, but I guess I expressed all this concern about the Chargers offense and their offensive line specifically. Still going with the Chargers just because I can't really take Wentz to beat Herbert. It's I know it would happen some number of times out of 10. It's just short week hurts Wentz too, and it's like I don't think he can take any more regression.
And I think no, I'm with you on that. I think that the Chargers came out the first 3 weeks of the season. I thought they looked like one of the best teams in the AFC, and injuries pile up, and obviously that has not been the case of late. But I still am a believer in this Chargers team. I think from the fantasy angle, the other thing we need to touch on here is your thoughts on Oronde Gadsden. He's obviously been breaking out. If he was still available on your waivers this week, he was certainly the top billed free agent addition across pretty much any league you can think of. So how much are you buying it?
I'm buying it quite a bit for a few reasons. I mean, it's easy to believe in a pass catcher of Justin Herbert. It's easy to believe in, the production that Gadsden has shown so far in the NFL, but especially relative to like the expectations that would normally come with a 5th round pick. I think it's easy to fade the NFL's assessment there too, because it was always like, what was he supposed to show differently? I mean, you guys draft tight ends in the 1st round that can't block all the time. So how bad could he possibly be as a blocker that when he's also matching the pass catching production of these 1st round tight ends you're prioritizing, that he falls all the way to the 5th? I mean, even Harold Fannin went in the 3rd. And like, I like Harold Fannin a lot. Like Fannin went in the right place, if not too late, but Gadsden falling another 2 rounds yet is crazy given the way that he produced at Syracuse. So, I think it just kind of makes sense that Gadsden would be really good. What I don't really understand about last week is how Keenan Allen had such a big game. And because I thought Keenan Allen and Gadsden were caught in a little bit of a zero-sum thing, and that definitely wasn't the case last week.
Right. So, I mean, it does feel like there's always going to be one of these Chargers that gets squeezed on a given week. But I think what Gadsden's showing right now, it's something where I'm feeling pretty confident in him. And, again, ultimately, you're going to be kind of riding the lightning when it comes to either McConkey or QJ or Keenan Allen, it feels like. But right now, I mean, Gadsden, you don't get that many targets if you don't have like the absolute trust of Justin Herbert already. I mean, his advanced metrics are really strong. He's getting targeted on 20% of his routes. He's getting a 2.28 average yards per route run. So, I mean, everything is looking pretty rosy on Gadsden.
Did you see him go in fab anywhere? I actually had him from last week. I got him for $8 on my NFFC team last week. When I was surprised he was available. I just hadn't looked. I would have picked him up even sooner.
I was looking actually of interest in this game. I was looking to add him in NFFC and drop Hawkinson. I'm tired of Hawkinson, but
where we're at,
yeah, whiffed on that one. Whoops. But Gadsden, a league that's as sharp as the NFFC. Not surprised that he was no longer available. The big free agent additions there were Alec Pierce for 103, Jalen Knoll for 69, Xavier Legette for 50, and that's out of $1,000 free agent budget. Anything else to add here before we jump on over to Sunday?
I'm concerned about Kamani Vidal a little bit in this one. It went bad last week against the Colts, of course, but I will say this is the same defense that made Kenneth Gainwell look good, so maybe Vidal can get a little bit going. It would be huge for the Chargers, and I think the Chargers do win easily if Vidal goes over like 60 yards in this.
Yeah, that's a really salient point, I think. I mean, the Dolphins game being what it was, but Vidal, like when he's cooking, you have a lot more balance to this offense. I think that this is an offense that functions better when it has that threat of the run game. Whereas, the first couple of weeks of the season, the results were really good, but you didn't feel super sustainable about the Chargers being like number one in neutral pass rate. You figured that would come back down and need to balance out just a little bit. Let's get on over to Sunday. We've got the Dolphins and the Falcons. This is a tricky one. The Falcons are 7.5 point favorites. It's hard to trust them with that many points, but it's also hard to trust the Dolphins to cover anything really right now. Last week, I think was kind of like the bottom falling out, officially getting drubbed by the Browns like that, especially in miserable conditions. Like the Dolphins just, that they're going to play poorly in bad weather, but like it was just such a visceral look as the Browns just ran all over this Dolphins team. I mean, we saw a little bit of Quinn Ewers in that game as the Dolphins just kind of bent the knee in that one. Any hope for this Dolphins offense going up to Atlanta in a dome environment?
Well, I'm definitely low on Tua Tagovailoa and like the personnel of the Dolphins roster, but I'm not sure what anyone expected to happen last week. I mean, the Browns, I think matchup wise, kind of had the Dolphins in a sharpshooter anyway. But when you throw in the weather, it's like that's like what is Tua Tagovailoa of all people supposed to do in that situation? Like, there's just it's like a silly scenario in my opinion. So that is kind of among the worst it could have possibly, like the worst possible conditions it could have been for the Dolphins. So even though the Falcons defense is quite good, and even though Penix tends to play better in Atlanta, which can only put more pressure on the Dolphins passing game, it's still a much better setting than last week. I just can't tell, as far as the spread goes, like is it enough of a difference that the Dolphins cover? I think I picked the Falcons to cover, but I would say that if so, it was more on the assumption that Penix's numbers get better, and so if among others, Drake London goes off in this game, whereas last week obviously he did not. But this week Drake London goes off, so if Penix is having one of his better games and Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier are the constant they are in the backfield, then the Falcons should get to like 40 points in this game.
It's possible. And they might be able to do it without really even throwing that much. I just think that Bijan is that big of a mismatch for this Dolphins team.
Mash that defense to bits too.
Yes, I think if he pushes for 7-8 carries, for your DFS considerations, he could be like a decent, like cheap running back, pivot option this week. Penix was limited on Wednesday due to a knee, so you'll want to pay attention to that as we get closer to the weekend. But think he's, the fact that he was at least limited on Wednesday, I think a good sign that he'll at least be available. You're not really banking on him to give you much in the way of rushing production anyhow. So just stand back there against a toothless pass rush and, be able to get it done as far as that is concerned.
I'm sorry, John. Is this thing that Uncle Ted said true? That Tua takes post-game showers but doesn't wash the paint off of his face? Because that is, if that's true, if it's not true, that might be slander, arguably. But if it is true, that's got to be the most try-hard, smoking gun bust kind of thing ever. Like leaving the face paint on. That's fun.
Yeah, you can't do that. Does he wear like a face cover?
Like he wears his helmet to the mall.
Yeah, wouldn't put it past him. Yeah, the vibes are just pretty horrendous there in Miami. Let's see here. Anything else? I guess on the Jalen Waddle front, I think he's been a frustrating asset to manage in your redrafts because this Dolphins team has been so bad. But now with Darren Waller being hurt, in addition to Tyreek being out for the season, like that, it feels like that there's no other viable option in this passing game. So at least the targets should be there for Waddle to feel okay starting him.
Yeah, it's never easy to bench a guy like him just because of how talented he is. I do worry though, not about AJ Terrell. I don't think AJ Terrell can cover Jalen Waddle. I think Jalen Waddle is really, really good and completely going to waste in Miami. But I do worry that the whole structure is collapsed so badly to this point that even something like, well, more targets, that has to be good, right? Maybe is not even true anymore because it might just be like more hospital balls. So I don't know what to do. I might actually have to bench him for Jaylen Warren in one league this week, and I kind of am just getting more and more resolute in that plan the more I think about it.
Yeah, I do like the way that Warren's been running of late, definitely. Let's get on over to Charm City. We've got the Ravens and the Bears. The line suggests that Lamar Jackson will be back. The Ravens are 6.5-point favorites against the Bears, who I think have won 4 straight, but the Ravens coming off the bye should be a decent bit healthier for this one relative to where last time we saw them against the Rams or against the Texans, where it was a very patchwork unit out there on both sides. I think Patrick Ricard should be in line to make his season debut as well, which I think is a big help for this team. I think Roquan Smith is going to be back. Ronnie Stanley's going to be back. So a lot of things, a lot of help on the way for Baltimore, but it's not like they were playing great before all those injuries, kind of occurred.
I don't know. They were really unlucky to lose to the Bills in week 1. And then I think it was just kind of a series of, cataclysms that were difficult for any team to withstand. And just like a little bad luck here and then worse luck the next week can kind of, it can kind of make this outcome for a team that was otherwise pretty good. The defense was definitely really disappointing, but even that I think can trace pretty largely to the Matabuike injury.
Yep.
And it's like we went into the year saying like, well, they're pretty thin on the defensive line, but as long as no one gets hurt there, and then that happened, that specific worst thing other than the Jackson injury happened. It's like, oh yeah, now you have a bunch of backups playing. I guess that isn't something we would rationalize normally, but the backups are on the field. It's not going to be very good. So the pass defense, I am hopeful that Awuzie, Wiggins, Hamilton all being there is enough to make the coverage pretty good, but the run defense, I don't know. I don't think there's much to be done with that, with the personnel they have. Like they need to add, Travis Jones is the only person who can hold any ground in that defense at front, and they got to get some help. They need to think more like the Lions, having like 3 2-gappers on hand at all times just in case. Like that's the way the Ravens should have approached it, and they didn't. So their run defense is just going to be bad all year. But in this case, Swift dealing with this injury, I think Caleb Williams, I'm so concerned about Caleb Williams at this point that I think that he can take an easy matchup and make it bad. So I don't see him in this Bears offense as particularly threatening. And on the other side, if Lamar is back, then yeah, the Ravens are scoring like 35 points. So if covering by 7, like, do I think Caleb Williams is getting to 28? No.
I don't either. Despite the Bears rattling off some wins, I don't know if it's been like overly convincing at any point other than maybe like that Cowboys game. The Raiders won that it was by the skin of their teeth. Washington kind of did it to themselves, and then they played the
Washington's
Saints.
All beat up.
Yeah, exactly. So there hasn't been like necessarily like a signature win. I will say that the Bears seem to have figured out their ground game a little bit better, but with Swift, Monungai is good, but we've talked about it with Swift over the course of his career. When he's at 100%, he's very good. When he's at less than 100%, especially with a groin issue, like we've seen him have those in the past, that saps some of the explosiveness, the cutting ability that he's kind of known for. If he's not rolling here, then the Bears can't kind of make the Ravens pay for their lackluster run defense, and it all kind of falls on Caleb Williams' shoulders. I don't know. I feel a little bit leery about this Bears offense this week, and I think on top of that, Williams famously like it is a guy that buys a lot of time, and I'm trying to say that like basically the Ravens' bad pass rush is gonna have like several seconds to get to Caleb Williams because he's always just spending way too much time back there. So like the Ravens pass rush might be like a false positive for this Ravens pass rush, like getting after Williams, because Williams just runs himself into sacks so often.
Yeah, and Williams has maybe it's not as bad and maybe it's still fixable, but he has a little bit of the same problem that Justin Fields has, where he's just refusing to stay on rhythm. He just won't do it. And there are these really easy plays to be had that he just will not throw the ball on. And he needs it to be because there's like you see it in how he's limiting turnovers relative to touchdowns, right? Like he's got a good touchdown interception ratio. He must be doing good. Not true, because like you look at the completion percentage and the yards per attempt, he's basically too risk averse than is acceptable, more risk averse than is acceptable, because he can't tell what's going on correctly enough when like the danger approaches, and you have to stand up and like stare it down a little bit, get into some tight windows, make some tough throws, and he just like goes static when that point happens. So he stays away from it. Like he just sees static and hears static when that happens. So he tries to get rid of the ball or avoid the entire pocket scenario entirely, rather than end up there in that moment where he just has to stand there and pull the trigger. He's still young, and this might develop at some point. A lot of quarterbacks have taken along, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Eli Manning would have been benched before he ever won a Super Bowl if he had any other last name. So Caleb Williams could still get it together, but right now he looks like crap to me.
No, I tend to agree. I pull for him. We went to the same high school, all that. So I want to see him do well, but I don't think that this is the spot, and I don't think that the last 4 weeks necessarily like show that he's actually winning these games for the Bears. I think it's been a little bit schedule based and the run game getting going in particular. My last little wrinkle for this one, if you are severely hampered by bye weeks this week or injuries. I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to kind of move into the wide receiver
God, I
2
hope so,
role
man.
in
I'm
Baltimore.
disgusted by how little they've used DeAndre Hopkins. He's been just automatic headshot every time they put him on the field.
Exactly. So I could see him getting into the end zone if you're prop inclined this week. It may be a little bit too risky to start in your season longs, but I would, if you're doing like a Ravens centric build in DFS, I would not hesitate to throw Hopkins out there. He's been playing at an extremely high level, albeit on limited snaps. Before we get on over to the Bills and the Panthers, that'll be a real rabble rouser. We've got a message from our friends at Circa. It's football season, and the best place to catch the games is at Circa Resort and Casino in downtown Las Vegas, featuring the best pool in history, Stadium Swim. Stadium Swim has 3 levels, 6 pools, and a 143-foot diagonal screen. Whether it's Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, Stadium Swim is America's favorite place to watch football. No matter the size of your group, Stadium Swim is the place for you. From owner suites to cabanas, daybeds to stadium booths, there are seating choices for everyone. And the best part, Stadium Swim is open 365 days a year. With temperature-controlled pools, it's a great place to catch the games all season long. Stadium Swim, located at Circa Resort and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Book today at circalasvegas.com. I know Dulce will be hanging at the daybeds at some point soon. Let's see here. We also have a message from our friends at Blue Wire. And look at that. We're on to the Bills and the Panthers. The Bills are just 7-point favorites in this one. And I know that they kind of stumbled into their bye week, but they are coming out of that bye week with a bad taste in their mouth, having lost to the Falcons and the Patriots in very public fashion. I don't think the Panthers, they have, I guess, rattled off 3 straight wins against the Cowboys, the Dolphins, and then
Jets.
last week against the Jets. So you beat the 3 worst. So you're not one of the 3 worst teams in football is really what that says to me more than anything else. I think the Bills roll, but like from a fantasy perspective, I think the big question is, what do you make of this Bills like group of pass catchers right here? Because you feel good about Allen and Cook, but everyone else is just kind of question mark.
Yeah, I almost wonder if Allen's relative struggles against the Falcons wasn't so much that the Falcons were truly overwhelming them as much as almost like maybe it's been so easy for the Bills this year, and so much of the time it's so easy for the Bills that they sort of forgot how to work through difficult situations. And getting in as challenged as they were by the Falcons, maybe if they had 2 more quarters they would have figured it out and gotten some numbers going off. But in the meantime, it's like Keon Coleman hasn't done anything since week 1. Joe Brady, who I am a big fan of actually and normally would defend, I think has gotten too cute with things, and he's not focusing enough on getting the ball to the best players when the stakes warrant that level of aggression. He seems like he I think in the past Joe Brady used to toe the line correctly between focusing on the best players that you have and creating an element of surprise. So it's like going as far as Matt LaFleur is too far. And I think Brady did a good job of staying right before that line in the past, and now has kind of gone a little too close to it or over it himself. So keeping James Cook involved as a constant is, I think, the one thing Brady has gotten right lately. But they have to do more to get Shakir going, in my opinion, and maybe even Dalton Kincaid if he's available. I forgot to check on his latest injury status, but it's fine to have Dawson Knox and Jackson Hawes playing a ton of snaps too, but the Bills basically spend too many snaps, in my opinion, putting guys like Tyrell Shavers on the field. And it's like Josh Palmer, Shakir, Coleman should be out there for 50 plus snaps each every game, unless Kincaid and the tight ends are taking those snaps. I'm thinking that this is one setting where now that they've especially gotten bit for it, the Bills are going to take it more seriously and with better focus than they have in some number of weeks. And I think they'll, even if the Panthers play pretty well, and the Panthers run game should be there at the least, the Bills run defense, I'm not sure they can do much fixing with that in season anyway. But I do think Josh Allen probably finds a way to go nuts in this game. So I think the Bills cover by just putting up a lot of points.
I think so too. I'm laying the wood with the Bills here, and on the Shakir front, I know that like the league was going to adjust to what they were doing last year when it was just so automatic, but it can't be you can't be completely ignoring what happened last year if you're Brady and company. Like you need to make sure that that is at least still a decently sized part of this Bills passing game. It looked like as far as like the Kincaid thing, he was limited with an oblique on Wednesday. So again, another one that you'll need to pay attention to going into the weekend if he's going to be available. But I think ultimately we're going to see the Bills. I think they're going to cross into that 30-point mark. And Bryce Young on the other side did not practice, got that ankle. So I'm guessing it's going to be Andy Dalton.
That might be your reason to take the Panthers to cover. It's like Andy Dalton is terrible, but he's better than Young.
This is true. What did you make of like the Xavier Legette being somewhat relevant last week? Like I mentioned earlier on in the show, he was one of the more. It wasn't a huge investment on Fab, but just like 5% of the budget. Do you think that he's someone that you can roll out there, or with Jalen Coker being off IR, do you think that he starts to get a little bit more involved?
I don't know. That's a tough one. Legette is sort of all over the place and always has been. And that one last year at Clemson, he more or less kept it together the whole year. And I suppose it's possible that he sort of had a corner turned last week and maybe he's locked in now in a way that he never was previously in the NFL. But that Jets defense, aside from Sauce Gardner, is about as bad as any in the NFL. And it's that in Quinn Williams too, but coverage wise, every rep other than Sauce Gardner is just terrible. And Xavier Legette's numbers as a whole are still really, really bad. Like even with those 11 targets, he's got 31 on 270. That's 270 snaps. That's just like okay. That's like borderline acceptable for the expectations in this case. It is good though that he had the game that he did against the Jets, and those numbers, 9 catches on 11 targets, those are quality numbers for sure. I guess I don't know. I'm a little concerned that he's all tools, no skill, and is liable to just kind of make puzzling plays that drive people crazy and don't really make any sense.
I was never a huge Legette guy personally, and yeah, I'm not necessarily buying any sort of turnaround here just because he had like a touchdown against the Jets. So I think that Sunday will be trickier for him and this Panthers pass game. Generally, we did have a question: do you like Khalil Shakir or Alec Pierce for this week? I had a tough time deciding that one. I think if it's PPR, I'm probably leaning Shakir.
I'm going Shakir. Yeah, I'm not taking it for given that Joe Brady features him as extensively as they should, but I do think that Shakir is never going to stay quiet for long when he is quiet at any point.
Yeah, it's common when it comes to Khalil Shakir. And then we did have a question on the quarterback front. Would you stream Joe Flacco or Jackson Dart? Jackson Dart has the Eagles on the road. Flacco, easy matchup at home against the Jets.
I'd go with Flacco. I know I might seem like I was just wrong about Dart because I certainly didn't think it would go well for him against Denver, but I'm not actually conceding anything still because you didn't ask me like, what if Daniel Bellinger's allowed to get behind the safeties 3 times inexplicably? Then I'm like, oh, I guess Dart could probably make those throws. It's just that I don't assume things like that when I'm projecting games. So I think Dart is still going to have a harsh regression phase as teams kind of key in on what his tendencies and what Dable's play calling tendencies with Dart actually are. Whereas against the Jets, that's barely a football team at all. Like Joe, the only worry I have about Flacco in that game is him not throwing enough passes.
And I still think that the Bengals, they just need to. And they obviously trust Flacco to do that. I thought Flacco was so funny on the post-game show after they beat the Steelers last week. Like he was just so brutally honest about like his own play. He's just like, look, like some of these times I don't even know the play really, but I know that T and Jamar are there and they are going to catch it and they're going to make me look good. And I'm just going to get the ball to them and it's going to work. So that certainly happened against the Steelers. I think that definitely happens against the Jets. And I think on the Dart front, I'm optimistic about him for fantasy purposes. Like
he will run. I'll give him that. He'll always
yeah.
run, and he'll like always have like a playmaking threat about him. I'm not convinced he can play like steady passing quarterback. And if the Giants put pressure on him to carry the team as a passer that way, I'm worried that he might glitch a little.
Yeah, and like it's such a quick rematch against the Eagles that I think the Eagles are gonna have like very like fresh information on what went wrong. And I think another big thing that helps is they're gonna have Jalen Carter back.
Yeah.
He was not available against the Giants the first time, and we obviously know what happened in that one. But I think it's a little bit tougher sledding for Dart this time around. So I think Flacco does project better as well. Keeping on with the slate, why don't we stay on that Jets Bengals game? Oh boy, this year's Joe Burrow-less Cincinnati Bengals are a 6.5 point favorite against somebody. That just underscores how bad things are with Gang Green right now.
Yeah, I definitely understand benching Justin Fields because he just was not running the offense basically, but I do think it's going to eventually become pretty clear that this Jets, as much as I like Aaron Glenn, I think his regime here is not looking very good. The offensive coordinator was not doing enough to highlight Fields' actual, positive skill set traits, and leaving too many of his negative ones into the equation of the offense, namely like expecting him to kind of run this reads-based, modern NFL passing offense, especially with these receivers that they have. It's like this team has Tyler Johnson and Arian Smith playing like 80 snaps a week. It makes sense that Justin Fields would fall into this sort of PTSD about nobody being open all the time, because if Garrett Wilson isn't open, no one's open. And when Garrett Wilson isn't there, or when you're getting the yips and now even the Garrett Wilson targets aren't working, you truly have nothing left except maybe your ability to run, which the Jets did nothing to emphasize with Fields as the starter. So I think Taylor will at least be an improvement for the Jets pass catchers, but I think there's way too much pressure on Taylor. I think Taylor could be a good stopgap kind of guy if you only need him to throw like 25 passes in a game, but you're needing 35 plus with a defense like the Jets have, and you're throwing to receivers like these. What is even supposed to go right? I don't understand the premise. It's anyway. Breece Hall, I think, is still really good, but his touchdown opportunities have been severely limited by the profound dysfunction of the Jets passing game. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not assuming the Jets score a point like ever again, I guess.
It is that bad, and on the Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall front, like the only really two talented skill guys that they have not practicing as of Wednesday. Garrett Wilson's got the knee. Forget off the top of my head what Breece is.
Sauce Gardner
dealing
concussion.
With. I think
like
this
team is nothing.
An absolute disaster.
It's not a real NFL team.
No. So I mean, would you consider as like a punt play Isaiah Davis for like DFS just because the Bengals defense is that bad?
I think Davis is pretty good actually, and Tyrod Taylor will probably check down a decent amount. So yeah, I think it looks like Hall is gonna play, in my opinion. I'd hope I'm wrong. I hope I guess that he gets traded to the Chargers. Right. I hope he's in Los Angeles right now and can get there in time for the trade today. But short of that, I assume, it's going to be extremely difficult to score points in this offense. It's just in the case of Davis, especially for like DFS or like if as far as like picking up off the waiver wire, he's often available. So if you needed like 8 points with maybe upside for more in the event that Hall is out, I think Davis could do that.
I think so too. And then last detail, I think we can be encouraged that with Flacco at quarterback, that you're still going to be fine about rolling out your Cincinnati pass catchers. I'm not willing to say necessarily that Chase Brown is fixed, but last week was encouraging, and
it's a start.
I think you can at least not have to answer that question again for another week. I think this week sets up totally fine for Chase Brown as an RB2.
Yeah, it is a little tiny bit concerning that they've been giving more work from scrimmage to Pirine, but I think the Bengals are kind of after not being in this position for a long time, they're going to sort of against the Jets at least find themselves in a position where they're like, hey, we can kind of call whatever we want. It's like we might, even though we're scoring a touchdown now, we might not give up a touchdown in the next drive. So we can kind of just run the ball maybe in the next drive and just sort of see what happens. And after getting Chase and Higgins right last week with Flacco, I think they can kind of start thinking more like, oh, now we can kind of get Brown right because it's the Jets. What are they going to, they're not going to, if we have to go 3 and out because Chase Brown got held to 10 yards on 9 yards and 3 carries, doesn't matter. It's the Jets. We'll get the ball right back. Try it again.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is almost like a workshopping event for the
Yeah,
Bengals.
I mean, it makes sense to do it to get the rhythm all fixed all over the all parts of the offense. Get Brown going a little bit, work on some play action stuff you haven't been able to try in a while, whatever. You can kind of give defenses more to worry about at least before you play them the next week.
I'm thinking about sneaking the Bengals through in Survivor. I might be feeling myself having made it to
They're
week 8.
They're going to win.
But
they might have the biggest point margin of the week. I'm absolutely cursing them straight to hell with that declaration, but I believe it.
I love it. I'm in. Let's go Niners Texans. I think this is a tricky one to figure out. The Niners, of course, are continue to be a bit of a mystery as far as who's going to be available in that one. And the Texans, they looked terrible, I thought, on Monday night. I couldn't believe that they were relatively in that game.
Yeah, I don't think they were. It was definitely one of those scoreboard tricks on us. But yeah, the Texans are reaching that point too, where it's like, what even is supposed to happen here? Good, what other than struggle and collapse was theoretically supposed to happen when you don't even at this point have Nico Collins, Christian Kirk, or if they're out, Dalton Schultz also picking up something. So on the one hand, I feel like the Texans' problems are pretty easily identified and attributed, but on the other, I don't know enough about their organization, or I guess even CJ Stroud and his role in the organization to know what's going on and why, as far as why is Caley the offensive coordinator after one somewhat down year from Slowick that you could have just pointed out at the whole time. It's because the offensive line sucks. It's even if you don't even if Slowick was doing this or that was stupid. It's this offensive line sucks. You would expect it to have these struggles, and now they're finding with Caley I guess it wasn't Slowick that was the problem. And if it were CJ Stroud who was running out Slowick, I'm not saying that he did. I have no idea. I'm just saying their actions in general don't make much sense to me. Then that would be concerning because it clearly has put the team in a worse place than it was. Stroud was so good as a rookie. It's been at best a harrowing struggle every single second since then. So I don't know. I expect the 49ers to win this game. I still take the Houston defense seriously. It's not hard to see why Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter can make good things happen, and those corners are good. Their secondary in general is pretty good. But DeMeco Ryans being unable to kind of stop the bleeding of this team and kind of get things consolidated and worked on is frustrating for me, and it's making it difficult to keep defending Ryans because it's this level of dysfunction should not be occurring under his watch, basically.
No. So, I mean, can you feel okay about even starting CJ Stroud this
No.
stage?
No, I don't know if I trust him against any defense other than Dallas or, the Ravens backups.
Yeah, we have him as QB 22 for this week. So that how the mighty have fallen. I think it's hard at this stage to, because of the offensive line, and Uncle Ted points out that they are not running the right run scheme for their running back personnel. So even Marks or Chubb aren't great starts, and you're gonna keep rolling out Nico Collins. He had a very confusing drop. I felt last week, but you're gonna keep using him, but you don't feel great about it anymore, which is an awful feeling for a guy that you took at the 1-2 turn.
Yeah, I still feel pretty much good about Collins. I will say that drop was brutal for sure, but he also is a guy who came into that game with something like a 78%, or sorry, he's like a 70+% catch rate over the past few years. So he very rarely, as infrequently as anyone, does Collins drop that pass. So with that said, it's bad that they're just kind of getting worse all the time, it feels like, and they're sort of disappointing in new ways all the time. the weight of that's definitely going to fall on that offense and kind of just get you to a place where you saw with like the Bears last year, where it's just like you could just tell everybody was miserable. It's like that's kind of where the Texans are inching close to. I will say they can make things easier on themselves if they stop playing players who shouldn't be on the field on offense. Like stop putting Agumba Wale on the field. Stop putting Xavier Hutchinson on their field. The refusal to take starter snaps away from Xavier Hutchinson is bewildering. They have Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins, who are both better. And if it weren't for Justin Watson getting hurt, they'd be playing him ahead of both of them too. It's like you shouldn't do things like that and expect to be rewarded for it.
No. So very confounding personnel choices there. Collins, you'll have to keep an eye on his status. Did pick up he's in concussion protocol.
He might be out. Yeah.
Like so.
And then they'll
Jalen
finally
Noel,
have to play Jaden Higgins.
Yeah. It took just an absolute carnage situation, but Higgins, I think definitely needs to get a little bit more involved this week. Let's see. Beyond that, I guess deeper leagues, you can consider Schultz a little bit, especially if Collins is out. Jalen Noel, someone I would consider as well in
that was
deeper
nice
formats.
to see.
Yeah.
He's really good. He was the whole time, and they were playing him behind like there was somebody else that I'm forgetting about. But anyway, it's good to see Noel get some looks. I think if Collins is out, we might just see the glorious Iowa State offense sort of take hold for a week at least.
And Brock Purdy on the other sideline, shaking his fist, like could be me, or it used to be him back in Ames, back in the day. Let's see here. We've got the Browns and the Patriots. The Browns coming off a great win last week against the Dolphins, ran all over the place. The Patriots, meanwhile, kind of were playing with their food a bit against the Titans to start that one out, but ultimately pulled away. Patriots are 6.5 or 7-point favorites, depending on where you're looking. Have the Browns kind of figured out the right methodology here where they need to be like that run first type of outfit, or was the Dolphins just too easy a matchup for them to like outthink themselves?
Yeah, I think Kevin Stefanski's inclined toward a run heavy, 2 tight end heavy offense as it is, and with the quarterbacks that he has, what choice does he have as a result? I think Judkins obviously is really good, but it would be nice, in my opinion, if the Browns passing game could get going a little bit more. I don't think it would be at the expense of Judkins's usage volume if they got the passing game going a little bit more, because in the meantime, even against the Dolphins defense that just cannot defend the run, it was a struggle for Judkins to get to 4 yards of carry. I know this sounds like I'm being greedy. It's like he had 3 touchdowns. What do you mean? I think you should be able to average like 5 yards of carry against the Dolphins with a running back as good as Judkins. And I'm worried that the difficulty level is just needlessly high because of, well, not needlessly high. It's understandable that it's so high with how bad the Browns passing game has been to this point, but it would be nice if the Browns passing game could get something more going. I do think though, Judkins' talent also compels the Browns to go with like a run heavy. He is the offense. There's no ambiguity about it. So I don't know what to make of the Patriots defense exactly. I still have trouble figuring them out just in general. I do worry for one game that Mike Vrabel, even if he doesn't have the great run defense personnel, he might be able to make the run defense play well for 40 snaps or whatever it takes to make it hard on Judkins, especially if Gabriel's not offering anything through the passing game and introducing turnovers to the formula. So with that said, me saying all that, you might think like, oh, you must be pretty low on the Browns in this game. Like I actually picked them to cover. I picked them as my best bet to cover this week just because I do think the Browns defense is tough. I think that is an unconditional part of them in matchups. So the Patriots, they're looking great. Drake May specifically looks great, but I still don't think they have that much from scrimmage talent, especially if a guy like Travion Henderson apparently can't do anything. Then it's like, I like Ramondre Stevenson, but I don't want him to be like the best player on the offense, or if Stephon Diggs can't play a 3-down role yet anyway. So I think the Browns can make the game within 7.5 or whatever it was, between Judkins kind of like running the clock out / keeping the ball away from the Patriots a little bit if he is converting into first downs. And then the Browns defense sort of just probably giving Drake May his toughest test so far this year, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, like the Raiders game feels like a totally distant memory. Like I don't
Yeah,
know how that one went wrong for New England. That'll probably go down as one of the
jet
more
lag.
confusing outcomes of the entire season. But yeah, otherwise it hasn't been a murderer's row of defenses that the Patriots have had to face this much tougher. I did see on I actually watched Sports Center this morning, if you could believe it, and they noted that the Browns haven't covered on the road in 8 straight games. They're getting
No,
getting a lot of points here, though. No, I'm not saying
maybe I need
friends are
to
your
like that
friends
for
until they're
regression
not.
odds. Maybe I need
There
to
we
see that
go.
as like nothing happens 9 times in a row.
That's my thought. So, a little bit of a close game. I think we're projecting here in a low scoring game with the over under being just 40 and a half. Next game, I'm very excited about this one. Maybe too much so. I think I'm just like I enjoy watching the Giants too much, but they've given me good like I have some backing from the last 2 games. The Eagles and in the Broncos games. Like Giants are kind of fun. I
Oh yeah.
really do think so. So they are 7.5 point dogs. I and I'm if you've listened to this show all season long, I do think the Eagles are very good, but like they bother me. They annoy me, and especially like for spread stuff, I feel like they're always tough to trust. But I do kind of see this one as one of those games where the Eagles just kind of mush them. But your thoughts here?
Right. I think Dart clearly is he's like a good prospect, and he's someone that the Giants can be excited to have. And I think that Brian Dable is a really good coach, as an offensive coach anyway. I just think that these are things that we kind of have seen before, and specifically with Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock. So I think while Dart should turn out to be better than those guys, especially DeVito, obviously he's better than DeVito. But as much as that should be the case, it's still also the case that Dable needs to come up with the part of kind of pantsing the defense in these games, and I think he does that more than people give him credit for. Just the same, I can't expect him to do it every week, and I can't expect Dart to kind of sort of like come out at the lucky end of some of these, ambitious plays that he's made, scrambling and such. It's like it is working pretty well, and and to Dart's credit, like in addition to being tough and standing in the pocket and being able to run aggressively, he did correctly spot that Daniel Bellinger was uncovered against the Broncos. Some quarterbacks will miss that part and waste a busted coverage, but it still was a busted coverage, and it is still probably the case that the Broncos weren't taking them as seriously as they should have, whereas the Eagles have no choice and are personally invested in not just the division aspect, but they got embarrassed the last time they faced this team. They're probably ornery, and they're probably like a little more locked in, a little more serious and intent on winning than they were the last time around. So I just see it as a situation where it's like the Giants are probably running into the Eagles at the wrong time, and in a circumstance where it's like, especially if Jalen Hurts isn't just missing all the time anymore, if he's somehow able to get good production out of AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, then the Eagles aren't supposed to be a team that loses very much.
No, so I think that things correct that this week as far as the Eagles go, and maybe to a certain extent, like the Giants have maybe been riding a little bit higher than their talent would suggest these last couple of weeks. I do think that the Eagles end up, looking pretty good here. I do want to ask you about Saquon. In 3 of his last 5 games, including 2 straight, he's been under double-digit fantasy points in half-point PPR. Is this like a good buy low on
Oh
him
yeah,
in like DFS?
I think so. And in season long, if he's somehow available, if you can, I don't know, if you got Rashee Rice back, and now you have this other player that's pretty good, but the Barkley owner might be flinching on Barkley because he thinks, oh, maybe Saquon Barkley's bad now. Actually, I will boldly predict that he is not, and that Barkley is actually good, and that a game like this actually makes a lot of sense as one where he could start to statistically correct.
Yeah, we've yet to see the 100-yard game on the ground from Saquon. even if like you were buying and I was that, it was going to be next to impossible for him to replicate last year, even to like 90% of it, he's not going to go the whole year without having a monster game. And I think that this is a pretty good spot for it.
He's had
You know,
cold stretches like this before. Like as much as Barkley is very good, he's not in that, peak Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry kind of category with the running instincts. So he can go cold more than those guys, but he gets hot again too.
Yep. So I like that here. And then one other thing just to keep in mind, AJ Brown should be good to go here, but was dealing with or is dealing with a bit of a hamstring right now. So if you're completely rich with receiver options, maybe you'd consider leaving him on the bench. But it looks like he should be active and good to go against this Giants team on Sunday. Before we get on to the afternoon slate, we got a message from our friends over at Mega Sports Progressive. Elevate your game with the ultimate sports contest, Mega Sports Progressive. Dive into a world of excitement with 3 progressive jackpots and a chance to win big every week and every month. We're rewarding 1,500 lucky winners, distributing over $50,000 in monthly prizes. All you do is answer 15 daily sports props, add up your correct responses for the week's cash prizes, and tally the week's totals for huge monthly cash rewards. Megasports Pro makes it fun and easy to join. This is a thrilling opportunity to be part of our growing community of sports enthusiasts. Sign up today and unlock a chance to win big every day, every week, and every month. Sign up is free, no commitments, no credit cards. Your first 9 days of play are free. Visit megasportspro.com today. We also got a message from our friends over at Chalkboard. Cash in on your NFL picks this season with Chalkboard. Simply choose more or less on your favorite player stats to win up to 5,000 times your entry. For a limited time only, new players get $20 free with no deposit required. Yes, you heard that right. That's $20 free just on sign up. See why over 1 million fans have already locked in with Chalkboard to turn their sports knowledge into cold, hard cash. Whether you're locking in the perfect slip with alternate lines, using the cash out feature to take your money and run, or hammering the daily promos, today is your chance to win up to 40 grand on a single entry. Stop sitting on the sidelines and get into the game with Chalkboard Fantasy Sports. Now available in more than 30 states. Download Chalkboard today and use the promo code ROTONFL, that's ROTONFL, to get $20 free with no deposit required. Pretty good deal there. So big shout out to our friends over at Chalkboard and at Mega Sports Progressive. We're on to the next games here. We've got the Bucs and we've got the Saints. This line has come down a little bit, I've noticed, and actually pretty recently. I think this was like 5.5 as of maybe not Thursday morning, but definitely Wednesday afternoon in favor of the Bucs. This one in New Orleans, but the Bucs now at ESPN Bet, they're just 3.5 point favorites going on the road here. I mean, I'm not trying to assign too much meaning to losing to the Lions, but the Buccaneers did look really bad, I thought, for the balance of that game. And I think that they were getting to like a point of critical mass with their pass catching injuries, where it is like starting to be like a limiting thing. And then again, with like Bucky Irving being out, you can't really like go to the run so much to like hide things or fix it necessarily. So I'm kind of with Vegas here, where this one might be pretty uncomfortable for the Bucs. Still expect them to win, but I can see this being a field goal game.
That makes sense. I think we sort of saw maybe like a incidental, meaningless correction to the Buccaneers stats, especially Baker Mayfield's against the Lions, because in my opinion anyway, we knew Baker Mayfield was sort of playing over his head going into that game, and specifically with the lack of turnovers. 1 interception to 10 touchdowns for Baker Mayfield. Even when Baker Mayfield was at his highest points previously, he was still a pretty high turnover quarterback, relatively speaking. It's just we didn't really care because he was scoring touchdowns. He had good indicators otherwise. But 1 interception to 10 touchdowns is something that Baker Mayfield at his absolute best, absolute most lucky, still can't sustain. So with the injuries, with the traveling, with all the things they've kind of had to manage with shuffling personnel this year in Tampa Bay, I think it made sense that the bottom would kind of fall, like you said, the critical mass sort of dynamic. It's like the bottom can kind of just fall out on you. And it doesn't necessarily mean anything as long as you kind of start to regain your footing at those points where it kind of fell apart. And I think Bucky Irving eventual return, obviously one way that they can kind of stabilize in a way that offsets the fact that Mayfield was playing over his head, playing higher than he's generally capable of. And the receivers getting healthy too, of course. Like once those two things happen, or by that I mean Egbuka and Evans. I don't know if I should get my hopes up about Godwin really anytime soon, but Evans and Egbuka, they should be fine eventually. And once that all happens, Baker Mayfield doesn't need to play better than someone could reasonably expect anymore, like he did for the first 5 weeks. So I think the Buccaneers are in some danger of not covering here if those injuries persist at receiver, especially. But I know Evans is out, but if Egbuka can get back here, I don't know. I guess I like the chances of them sort of getting enough of the stable infrastructure in place that Mayfield can kind of just be more like he was last year. But sorry, I have to ask this. What is the latest on Bucky Irving? I'm having some trouble getting my tabs.
I think they ruled him out early this week. Like they weren't. I don't know if I don't think he was placed on IR or anything, but they were just like, yeah, no, he's out again. I got all the
so for one more week at least. Yeah, you're right to, I think, lean for the Saints to cover. Given all that, I just the reason I can't really pick the Saints proactively is like. I just still think Rattler's terrible, and I think last week might have been the best he's capable of playing. Like so Rattler's credit, he did start pushing the ball downfield more, and he tried to make kind of ambitious plays that he might have sort of shied away from previously. But the result was the 3 interceptions. So that's what I thought the deal was. I was like, this guy needs to hide the football, or he's going to give it away.
Yeah, he does have that proclivity of the turnovers, but I'm worried about this Buccaneers offense continuing to be kind of stuck in the mud.
Absolutely.
I think there is opportunity for some of these guys that you might have picked up off of waivers these last couple of weeks, like a Tez Johnson or a Cade Otton. Like I think Otton's like a fringe top 10 type of tight end this week.
He's a good player, I think.
Rock solid. And then Tez Johnson, I'm rooting for him. He's like, to me, he's like what the Tutu Atwell optimists hope that he would be.
I don't know what to make of Tez Johnson exactly, but it is possible that as a hurry up specialist, he could be pretty consistently useful. But yeah, man, I just don't want 155-pound receivers on my team as a general rule.
Yep. Understood. I just think that this week, like I said at the top of the show, like
he's doing well though. He's definitely, and as a route runner specifically, he's definitely fulfilling on his promise. It would be nice. I'm kind of curious if they can get that Cameron Johnson going a little bit again, like 2 weeks ago, because since we've discovered Barton College last week, I've been fascinated by the legend of Cameron Johnson.
Yeah, it is fascinating, and I do need to learn even more about Barton College, but we'll see if he can get himself into the mix. Let's go. Very fascinating game here. We got the Cowboys and the Broncos. We got some good on good and some bad on bad. We got the Cowboys' great passing attack going up against this great Broncos pass defense, and then on the other side, the Cowboys can make anybody look good with their defense. But can they make Bo Nix look good? I think is the question.
I think they probably can, just in the sense that any top 40 NFL quarterback should be able to look good against Dallas. The other side, of course, is the tougher call, because Denver Broncos defense is still pretty scary to me, even after, for some reason, proving they just could not cover Daniel Bellinger last week. I think that's just one of those things that if you can't be perfect, I guess you'd rather the failure be you give up a couple, fluky tight end touchdowns instead of getting actually, run over by the other offense. 7 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. They're not taking the ball away in the Denver pass defense, but if they're giving up that Daniel Bellinger long play like that, and they're still only allowing 6.6 yards per attempt, I kind of worry even for a quarterback like Dak Prescott, who looks really good right now. But it's one of those things like even great players still lose matchups sometimes, and it wouldn't mean that the Denver secondary was bad or something. They could still be the best secondary in the league and still have a bad game for just one game, especially against receivers like CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. So it's so hard. We mentioned last week, it's like whatever I think Dallas will do, they probably won't. And if I have it's like hubris to think that I have any idea what they're going to do ever. But it seems to me like the time without CeeDee Lamb might have been like a little bit of a blessing, actually, because it kind of forced out of desperation, Dak Prescott, Brian Schottenheimer getting George Pickens going and like figuring out the exact best ways to use George Pickens and kind of like gain insights on George Pickens that they might not have if CeeDee Lamb had been in the offense the whole time. And in a matchup like this, that could be a time where it proves really significant, because even if Patrick Surtain is following around CeeDee Lamb when CeeDee Lamb's on the boundary, and even if Patrick Surtain gets the better of it there, do you like Riley Moss's chances against George Pickens?
Nope.
If they're 40 yards downfield, you can imagine it's a high cost for the Broncos to make one mistake in that case. Even if, again, if Patrick Surtain's playing brilliantly on the other side. Pickens could see a lot of Surtain, though, like he will, I think, because Lamb goes into the slot quite a bit and Surtain doesn't generally go there. But that just, if that is the case, I kind of get optimistic that just means then, well, both CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens should get some number of viable opportunities to do basically like their customary level of damage in this game. And if they do, then at that point, Dak Prescott's numbers must be pretty decent. And I guess we're assuming Jake Ferguson gets like 10 targets a week forever now. So he's doing whatever he will. But yeah, it's like, I can't tell, do I need to worry about Dak having more turnovers than usual? Maybe I do, but the Broncos haven't actually forced that many turnovers specifically yet. They've more so just kind of forced incompletions and maybe like rushed throws.
So I feel like even with the tough matchup on paper, I feel like the Cowboys are going to be able to hang with them. I think that the line is right and the total is right, so that there's good implied totals on both sides here. So a lot of like fantasy goodness, I think, to go all around.
Big Sutton game.
Yeah, Sutton, and then it's a kind of spin the wheel as far as like those other Denver guys. So I mean, if you have Mims, if you've got Troy Franklin, maybe you throw him in there just because of the matchup. But like I'm not.
If you have to, it's not terrible. I think Evan Ingram, you can also assume this is his, one of his best matchups of the year.
Do we know when DeMarion Overshone is coming back? I know he's like back practicing.
He's been posting about how the return is nigh. He's been saying things to that effect, and to presumably great consequence too. I think that was also a point he was trying to get across, is that it's over. It's all over for you, opposing teams, opposing offenses. Yeah, he's a limited practice participant this week. I don't know what a fair expectation is coming back from that multi-ligament injury, but
right.
Obviously he's an interesting player when he's on, and he's also a guy who is still probably like developing a little bit, because he's just such a like unmolded kind of talent coming out of Texas. But he could make that defense go from loaded to sometimes capable of beating up on really bad offenses.
Yeah, like they're not, if they had to play like the Panthers game again, it ends up looking different type of thing.
Yeah. They hold Rico to like 170.
Yeah, bingo. So just helping the margins. Let's get on over Titans Colts. I believe this is either the highest spread or tied for the highest spread of the year. The only one, I think, when I was looking around at this in our little historical odds database, you guys should check that out in our NFL betting section. It's fun to just kind of poke your own brain, see what you see. A lot of filters and customizations to find some historical odds. The Saints-Bills game, I think, was the only other game that was this lopsided as far as the spread is concerned. Indianapolis is just rolling, and the Titans are, I mean, they're so impossibly bad. This is, I mean, I think I'm like tempted to lay the wood.
Yeah. Uh, I think if you
Uncle Ted
identified
disagrees. Titans outright win.
Ted, surely you're joking. I think that's Ted's classic irony there. The Colts, I think if you were trying to pin down what's made them so effective, it's basically like they've, and this is often the case, they've controlled the trench part of the game pretty well. Daniel Jones obviously has taken the offense to a way higher level than Anthony Richardson did, or even Flacco or whoever else it was that they had there. But they win by, Jonathan Taylor taking 5, 6, 4, 25 from you, and Daniel Jones, getting these first downs in oftentimes favorable down and distances, and with usually good pass catchers. The Josh Downs absence was a recent strain, of course, but they just kind of dictate their will on offense consistently, and then on defense, they've held up pretty well against the run. And the Travarius Ward injury is a big loss that really sucks, especially the way it happened. It's like how frustrating. But their front four is still pretty tough, both in terms of like getting some pressure in the passing game and holding their gaps in the run game. So you end up in worse downs and distances against them. It's like that's what the game so often comes down to. The way they get that downs and distance advantage, I think, should persist even with like DJ Giddens on the field or whoever. It's like those conditions should all stay present over the entire course of the game, as long as Riley Leonard doesn't. Is Richardson going to play? I don't even know where he is anymore.
Oh, he fractured his eye.
Oh, right, that thing. Yeah, that's awful. Yeah. Anyway, so that sucks. So Riley Leonard, maybe he has to play in the second half, but it's like I don't think that he would negate the conditions that got them to the lead. And so I think the Colts just keep scoring points the entire game. Maybe the Titans start scoring some points. Speaking as to the cover, as far as the cover goes, like maybe the Titans get some points in the second half against the Colts defensive backups. But I don't know. I think I'd take the Colts to cover too, just because it's not often that we have a team that's as badly managed, both from the coaching perspective and from the front office perspective, as the Titans have been the past couple of years. It's like maybe it's just going to take a long time, or more time than they've had to fix the issues that made them sink that far.
I mean, I know the Cardinals game happened with Indianapolis, but I feel like generally speaking, Indianapolis is not like messed around with backdoor covers or anything like that. That it was not a backdoor
the
cover.
Cardinals have a pretty good roster on defense, and their offensive line isn't so bad. So I think it kind of made sense that on the Colts on one of their worst days ended up in some trouble against the Cardinals. But I just don't know of anything positively that the Titans can dictate. And it's like Shamir DK's emergence last week was pretty cool. You've been a pretty leading proponent of his, John. So I'd imagine you had a couple best ball shares that benefited from that.
In a dynasty.
I hope they keep him going. I like Aomanor, and I understand why Ridley needs to play if he's available, but they should just be playing DK over Van Jefferson, because at least DK will run away from somebody every once in a while. I just don't think that's like the kind of stuff that explains, in my opinion, how the Titans got 14 points on a day where the Colts, I'm expecting to get easily to 28.
Okay, so like the cover is not completely out of the question for this Titans team. Yeah, DK first career touchdown last week. What is the Ridley status right now?
Sorry, I'm not totally certain.
He did not practice on Wednesday, so if that holds, then we're going to see the rookies out there.
Can they do that?
Yes,
they should do that.
Yeah.
Oh wait, they re-signed him to exorbitant contract last year.
Oh no,
there's that Titans front office we love. They're always a step ahead.
Yep. So 2 more years after this one on a close to $100 million deal for one Calvin Ridley. Yep. Titans. It's going to be a little bit. Let's get on over. We got 2 primetime games to knock out. We've got the Packers and the Steelers. So it's not Rodgers' return to Green Bay. This one is in Pittsburgh, but does get to play his old pals, the Packers. I think there's a lot of sentiment that this Packers defense is going to be a problem for Rodgers and the Steelers. But I just kind of wanted to get your sense on how true that is, and then if I could get a little insight onto what's going on with the Packers offense right now. It feels like they're playing really close games against bad teams of late. It feels like.
I'm a little worried that might just be the LaFleur special, like the little bit of LaFleur flair he adds at the end of things. And I think it's a predictable place you end up. The scenario you mentioned, John, about like playing lower than they need to, playing down to the levels of these teams, especially on offense. I think it's what you get when you put lesser players on the field over your best players. When you're giving prominent snaps to guys like Wicks and especially Heath, and if you're not featuring, Golden and especially Kraft, like get Kraft going more. Like you have George Kittle on your team and you're using him for like 4 or 5 targets a week. He should be utilized and like doing big damage to the defense until the defense is forced to show something different, and then you hurt them where they're spread thinner in response to that. And LaFleur seems to do this thing where he's like, no, we have to keep like everything really horizontally distributed. We have to keep all of our levels really flat over, the left to right on the field. We don't want anyone getting too big of stats because then that'd be predictable or something. Like, that's terrible when one guy just can't be stopped. I hate that as an offense. It's good to see Josh Jacobs play so well. I think he gives them a weekly high floor. And from the front office perspective, I really like how Green Bay has sort of borderline over invested in its offensive line. It's like they've had a ridiculous number of injuries and they've handled it pretty well. And with guys getting a little healthier, it's like this offensive line might become legitimately dominant sometime soon. So I think they're always going to have like a floor, but I worry about LaFleur making things complicated with his just silly play calling and personnel tendencies. And I'm worried about Jordan Love going knuckleball mode on me without any warning. So I worry about, I'm ongoing worried about Green Bay sort of needlessly playing down in any given situation, including this one. And that Steelers pass rush I worry about. I'm not like some of Love's best plays that come when he shakes off a pass rusher and makes some throw that he stood tall in the pocket, developing, waiting for someone to get open downfield. I just think that's one of those things that you, especially against a pass rush like this, you don't want to try to make that your general method. You'd like to have an easier way of moving the ball than that. And I just don't really know where they're going to get it. I guess I got to admit that the Steelers pass defense hasn't been good. So maybe they can just
the Packers just don't have like Flacco was able to just get it to like total alphas, and they were cooking Jalen Ramsey and company. Like I don't know if the Packers have that guy.
Right, they don't. And as much as I still think Golden can do more, and as much as I think Dobbs might be a little underrated, I still am worried about the quarterback. And I worry that the Steelers have the kind of front 7 personnel, specifically in the pass rush, specifically those 3 down linemen plus Watt. Like that group of personnel, I think, can kind of wreck games sometimes, even if everybody else on the team is terrible. If the corners are playing bad, it might not matter some days if those pass rushers are getting hot enough. So I think it's a dangerous spot for Green Bay. Not really much to do with Aaron Rodgers, though. I don't really expect Aaron Rodgers to light it up on the other side. I'm probably going to be agonizing over that Jaylen Warren versus Jalen Waddle question all week from earlier, but I don't know. I definitely don't take the Packers defense lightly. So I worry a little bit about Warren too. I'm just, as far as picking the winner of this game, I'm kind of leaning on. I think the Packers are a little more liable to give a short field to the defense. And I think the Steelers defense is the one more likely to make big plays, like big game-changing plays. But it's one of those things like I don't really want to pick a winner in it either, because I can't assume Rodgers. If Rodgers needs to make plays against this Green Bay defense, I don't really want to bet on him being able to. He's not bad or anything. And to be fair to Rodgers, he doesn't have a real second receiver. And as much as I love the Darnell Washington bit, I'm not convinced that he's like the answer at wide receiver too.
No. I'm a huge Big O guy, but
I love Darnell Washington. They got to keep him on the field. It's just they should Like Pat Fryermuth is their downfield complimentary receiver. Apparently, it's like what's going on? That guy runs like a 4.8.
Yeah, so that can't be it. I think Calvin Austin should be back this week, so that adds like
That
a
can only
little bit of
help.
like a speed complement opposite DK Metcalf. But yeah, it's kind of a one note passing game, and you know I'm worried about that Steelers offensive line. I think holding up against this pass rush over the course of the game.
Packers have obviously, yeah, Parsons, Wyatt. The Packers have ways of wrecking the pass rush a little bit too.
Right. So I'm gonna like hold my nose and take Green Bay here. I feel like the perception on Green Bay has changed a little bit in recent weeks, where everyone was ready to crown them after week one, but it's been a little bit tougher sledding of late. I mean, I think it's right that they're just a field goal favorite in this spot.
Bad kicker to have if you're a field goal favorite. Sorry,
Ooh,
the Packers, in my opinion.
right. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Chris Boswell, second best kicker of all time behind Brandon Aubrey.
Oh, I forgot to mention the Aubrey thing. Aubrey outdoors in Denver this week. We might see the 70-yarder.
I think it would be unethical for Dallas to not try to kick a 70-yard field goal, even if they have to do it on like a third down or something.
I agree. And then let's wrap it up here. We've got the Commanders and the Chiefs. Fun, like two team Commanders Chiefs, but no Jaden Daniels here, and we've seen the line swell over the course of this week. And in light of that news, we have the Chiefs as either 11.5 or 12-point favorites in this one. Last week we were talking about it, and it was like, I know the Chiefs never cover these big spreads, but I like this offense right now, how it's clicking. They get Rashee Rice back, and it's the Raiders. Like, of course, they're going to cover this spread against, I think it was like 12 points against the Raiders, and they shut them out 31-0. I don't know if it's going to be quite that bad, but I think another cover is potentially in the works here for KC. And what did you make of, the reintroduction of Rice into this offense and the kind of ripple effects to the other guys like Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, Travis Kelce?
Yeah, the ripple effect might take some time to stabilize, and especially because that Raiders game turned into a joke almost immediately. So
Yeah.
You don't really know for sure what you're about until you have your margins pressed a little bit and you have to kind of really make choices. Whereas the only choice the Chiefs had to make against the Raiders was like, who do we want to
Show
give
up.
the easy yardage to? What would be a good bit? Those were the kinds of questions that the Chiefs faced there. So they didn't really have to figure out anything in earnest. It just might be kind of a similar thing with the Washington defense. Like the Washington defense has been a mess, and I think Dan Quinn will probably get those guys to play hard. Like I think Dan Quinn has enough, approval with that team. They like him enough that when he says, we got to do this for Jaden, we got to keep the season, alive with the defense stepping up. They'll try their best, I don't doubt, but it's just one of those things. Like if the Chiefs have Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy, Patrick Mahomes with a decent or better offensive line, that's an offense I expect to be a top 3 offense. Like I know it's been a long time, but I still think of Patrick Mahomes as very clearly the best quarterback in the league, and one who, when he has a sufficient level of help around him, is going for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns in a year. So it makes sense to me that like the Washington defense would still be in a lot of trouble. It's just, I guess if the Washington defense does show up, maybe those margins will get pressed a little bit, and we'll see the Chiefs go with something like 50 snaps for Rice and Worthy, but then Smith-Schuster rotates out with, I don't know. I guess it could be like last week, but I'm just expecting with Worthy at 48 snaps and Rice at 33. In a serious game, they're both at 48. Nico Remigio and Jalen Royals don't play. Smith-Schuster, Hollywood Brown, and Thornton apparently exactly evenly split the remaining snaps, and that's probably the best way to handle it if you're the Chiefs, I think.
I think so too. And I think this sets up really well for Kelce. Like if they can isolate some matchups where he's running on like Bobby Wagner.
Noah Gray is a little bit due, I will say that. So like Kelce's done pretty well all year, but Noah Gray had 400 yards and 5 touchdowns last year, and through 7 games he has 75 yards and no touchdowns this year.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think in an alternate universe, if he was, on some other team where Travis Kelce was not there in the legend that he is, I think that Noah Gray would be like a top 18, top 15 type of tight end potentially. But yeah, just a little bit. I guess for your showdown lineups on Monday night, I could get with having Noah Gray in my lineup, and then I think
Yeah.
some people want to know about Brashard Smith because he's had some production in recent weeks, but obviously, additionally, some kind of unique game outcomes that you can't always predict. But I think we could make a decent argument that the Chiefs roll again, and therefore blowout scenario. We see more
Mhm.
Brashard Smith again.
Could easily be the case. It looks like he's working in like a 10 to 20 snap per game workload as like a pass catching specialist, and with his per route yardage returns, I think it makes sense for the Chiefs to give him more snaps. Like I think he's kind of compelling them to, because it's easy to miss that he has 4 games with 3+ catches, including 5 against the Raiders, specifically relative to how few routes he's run in those games. He's only run over that same span where Brashard Smith has 14 catches. Only uh, he's only been he's only run 29 routes. So you got to understand, like, a lot of players get 29 routes in one game. Like Isaiah Pacheco this year might have a game where he has 29 routes in one game. And yet Pacheco's pass catching returns, of course, are like they're quite literally like 1/50th of what Smith's are.
Yeah.
So if Smith were to run 25 routes in a game, he might have like 50+ yards receiving regularly.
Intriguing skill set on the lad, no doubt about it. So I'd like to see him get a little bit more involved. I think this would be a good week for it. I think if you're really pinched at running back between injuries and buys, I think you could do worse than Brashard Smith as your flex, especially if you're of the belief, like I am, that the Chiefs really kind of clobber the Commanders.
Yeah.
With Mariota there, I mean, any of your kind of general fantasy assets, I think people have made the argument that with Mariota back there, the offense hasn't really fallen off too much in those instances. So would you still feel, I think you'd still start Debo. I'm not sure about McLaurin coming off of the injury. I think he was, set to return to practice and everything like that, but this is a tough spot. And I think like Krosky Merritt, probably if I can avoid it, I'm probably not starting. I think that he gets game scripted out of this one.
Yeah, it's tough to tell how that one, the Krosky Merritt specific part, might go, because some games they fall behind and they abandon the run and you end up with 30 yards on 8 carries, but sometimes they fall behind and sort of run the ball into prevent defenses and get 90 yards on 12 carries or something like that. Like, it's especially with Krosky Merritt being such a 20+ yard carry threat, it's like that distinction between those two outcomes can be pretty close together, even though for fantasy owners it's like a very painful in the first scenario. I don't know. I think it's one of those things, like, if you're not looking for a reason to force Krosky Merritt into your lineup, but if you're sort of uninspired by the alternatives, I wouldn't fret over needing to put him in, even as like a running back too. It's like injuries happen, bye weeks happen. It's sometimes we end up in these places.
So we do have, for everyone's edification, Krosky Merritt RB18 this week, number 37 overall in our flex rankings.
Given the buys, yeah, it's like there's quite a few bye weeks, so it kind of lowers the bar a little bit. But as far as the Mariota question, I just wish we knew how healthy or not McLaurin and Debo actually are, especially McLaurin, I suppose, because if they were all healthy, I think if it came down to garbage time, at least Mariota could probably get you something. But it's probably too much of a leap to imagine Mariota making this a truly competitive game. Like, maybe good enough to cover. I don't know. He's definitely done a pretty good job when he's had to play before.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I mean, it's a lot of points. I'm grappling with the realization that the Chiefs might be like really, really good again. And
yeah, and if they don't have McLaurin, then it's sort of like, oh, never mind.
Yeah. So keep an eye on that. Obviously, it's a little bit trickier for your fantasy purposes with this game taking place on Monday, but should have some light shed on this by the Saturday injury reports for the Monday Night Football game. But that is going to do it for us on this edition of the RoadWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Be sure to tune in to the Friday episode, DFS-centric episode, help you get your lineups built for tournaments and for cash games. Really good stuff from Ryan Belangi, Scott Genstad, Mo, kind of rotating cast of characters for that one, but all sharp guys that can help you get your DFS lineups rocking and rolling. Also, if you're playing DFS, make sure you're using our DFS lineup optimizers, not lobstermizers. and make sure that if you're not signed up at RotoWire, you should fix that. We got a 15% off deal right now off of any subscription. You go to rotowire.com, use that code YouTube15. It gets you access to tons of stuff beyond just our lineup optimizer. We got rankings. We've got this really nifty props tool that I use a lot as well to kind of help me out on prize picks or wherever else you play, Underdog, DraftKings, FanDuel, wherever. We've got great like infographics to help you kind of visualize some prop success for every single week of the NFL season. I'm out of pitches. That's going to do it for us here. Thanks for listening.